point that is our fire chat, and I'm very happy to have with us today Lars Podlowski, who's the CEO of Solyco Solar. Probably you don't know that, but you might know that Lars has been working for, or you might know the other company. Lars has been working for most of his life in solar, and I think it was he has been working in solar his entire life. He was from the start with Solon, Germany's first module manufacturer. There he was a CTO, later became the managing director or CEO running the company. He also worked with what probably few people don't know, First Solar, which at some point thought seriously about going into crystalline, but after some point, for some reason, Lars knows, abandoned that path and continued their thin film venture. Lars was also then working at PI Berlin, one of the world's leading testing labs in the solar sector, in the executive management, and he recently started his own company. Lars, maybe just as a start, before we review Intersolar, do you want to give us just a little background on what Solyco is doing and what your plans are there?
Yeah, actually, hi, hello from my side to everyone. Yeah, actually, Solyco is a supplier of PV panels. So we are supplying PV panels to the European solar rooftop market, and basically we are a pretty new company. It's only 2 years old, but with a very experienced team. As Michael said, we have been working before mostly at Solon, but also at First Solar for some time. And by the way, First Solar was in production with a crystalline product for more than a year before really it got terminated. So for some time, yeah, there was a commercial First Solar silicon product. And yeah, now for 2 years, actually, we are supplying PV panels to Europe, especially Germany, but also Spain and Switzerland. Currently, we do not have an own factory, which means we are subcontracting manufacturing of our products. But we are working with many like well-known production companies worldwide. And yeah, since we are only basically serving the rooftop market, yeah, Michael asked me if I will be ready to join here this conversation, which I'm happy to do.
Okay, cool. So it was, I think in October at this delayed Intersolar, we found the time on the last day to stroll the show together, but this year it was so busy that we just met at the beginning of the show and then lost us. But so just I think it would be nice if you could give us a little bit of an overview, what you saw in terms of, because we want to focus more on the rooftop part and today on modules, mounting inverters and systems, because you also offer systems at Solyco. So what, from your perspective, you found most interesting that was presented at Intersolar this year?
Yeah, maybe I start with the modules. With the modules, I think that it's clear, and we saw it here in the presentation, is a clear trend to N-type. And that's particularly interesting, I think, for rooftops, because, yeah, for rooftops, module efficiency is more crucial than for large ground mount power plant. And therefore, TOPCon and also heterojunction basically has a higher value. And the higher costs of N-type technologies can be compensated also with a slightly higher sales price. Yeah, so the trend towards TOPCon is clear, and basically every large manufacturer is following this trend now. Also, if I'm not totally wrong, like Q cells, the next generation of Q cells will be TOPCon based. So that is a predominating trend in terms of technology. From my perspective, the other trend that I saw, or clearly is much stronger in the past, is really these focusing on aesthetics. That's very important, specifically for the residential market basically everyone now is offering a full black version, which is really not really aggressively, but it's actively promoted as being beautiful. And this is very important. And this is like a trend which is some kind of new, of course, to the solar industry, because it's a technical product on one side. But of course, many house owners have been reluctant in the past because maybe some systems have not been looking very nicely. So this trend that solar must also be beautiful, I think is a very important trend. Maybe not only from this Intersolar, from the recent one, but it's a trend which is also happening over the last years. And maybe one the side effect of that trend is that what I already noticed, like on the last Intersolar, but it was more predominant here now, is that many companies are offering colored solar panels. And also in the presentation this morning, Jinko actually has some kind like an own department now for BIPV, offering standard modules also in different colors. And this is a super niche market today, but I think it will remain a niche market because the panel efficiency is lower, the panel costs are higher. But it's interesting that in the past years, only like small European specialized manufacturers were promoting such kind of products, but now also like big top 5 Asian manufacturers are starting to promote colored solar panels. So this, I'm really curious to see how this will develop over the next years.
Let's maybe then stay on the modules for the moment. I also found this N-type trend interesting. We also saw yesterday, I believe it was JA Solar who just came out with their N-type product, and they also showed actually that they expect already in 2023 that TOPCon will be, when it reaches larger size, be at least cost-wise on a par with PERC, and maybe then even go quickly lower. Maybe it will happen even before. So it will be interesting to see that. But if you look at that, because you are also offering N-type products as Solyco, so what do you see in the market? Is there already an interest for that? Are people taking care of that? Do they even know what that is, the installers? Because, you know, when we started with PERC, actually, first I had to explain people what is PERC and how sophisticated are they, or how educated are they to be also willing to pay the price difference?
Yeah, the installer is most crucial. The installer is basically the gatekeeper to the private house owner, because really no private house owner knows any solar brand, even not the biggest names in our industry, Trina, Longi, Jinko. No house owner, at least in Germany, has ever heard of that name. So they are totally dependent on what the installer is telling them of what is a good product. And therefore, it's very important to reach the installer. But honestly speaking, yeah, the installer is not so super educated in terms of technical details. Our experience is, and we have been a little bit frustrated, honestly, like 2 years ago when we introduced the first TOPCon product with our brand. That it's very difficult to explain the installers the advantages of TOPCon. I think it's mostly the higher output power, or the higher STC power, that will be the convincing effect. If a panel has, let's say, 420 watts instead of 400 watts, that's interesting for the installer. Any other technical detail, like better temperature coefficient, maybe a little less initial degradation, is something which we as the industry needs to explain to the installer, but then the installer needs to explain to the private house owner. And I think that's very difficult. I think the fact that A, the product has a higher STC power, and B, the product is really not so much more expensive now, are the main drivers to bring TOPCon into the market. And I'm convinced, yes, like over the next years, TOPCon will gain a large market share. But I think it's mostly driven by the higher STC power, combined with the effect that the price or the cost, the manufacturing cost of TOPCon will be very similar to PERC in the near future.
Mm-hmm. And okay, there are all these advantages of N-type that we heard from the various manufacturers, but I think stood out because in the end everything is coming into that, and that's the warranty. Yeah? So we saw basically that the performance warranty from all manufacturers is now also for N-type products, if they are glass, 30 years, and then you see, of course, also this 1% degradation instead of 2%. Is this a metric actually that is interesting for installers, or that they can use to sell it better, or don't you think that doesn't matter? Because we also saw recently even SunPower coming up with a 40-year warranty for their IBC product.
Yeah. No, the warranty terms are very important for the private house owner. And I'm referring now to private house owners because this is mostly our market. Of course, for commercial rooftops might be, but I think it's at least the same. Yes, house owners, they are looking to the guarantees, to the warranty curves, to the power degradation curves. And it is a difference if there's a 1% or 2% initial degradation. And if you see all these curves, which are comparing N-type to PERC, and you see that N-type is better, that is an important additional convincing factor. Yes.
Okay. So, but would it be then the consequence if you simply say, okay, TOPCon is at that level and heterojunction is actually having even higher efficiencies, but the costs are also quite a bit higher. But theoretically, you should, if you have large wafers, actually come to even higher efficiencies if you design the module nicely. Shouldn't be that then, if cost for the end consumer in the residential segment at least is not so important, be then the driver to even that technology?
Yes, I think heterojunction has a good potential specifically for the residential rooftop market. But for TOPCon, or with TOPCon now, like every big producer, they have already like nice products in the right form factor and the right power segment of, let's say, 400 watt plus. And at least to me, it seems that all the heterojunction manufacturers maybe they are more struggling with the technology or so to get it really into mass production. I don't know any nice looking heterojunction product, full black with, let's say, plus 400 watts. They are all mostly M6 based, which means they are reaching maybe 390 watts, 395 watts. And it's very difficult to explain to a house owner why a 390 watt peak panel with heterojunction is a better product than a 420 watt panel with TOPCon. It's to the private house owner, the 390 watt panel looks worse, no matter if the technology is maybe even better. What I miss, and maybe you can help me, but I don't know any heterojunction producer which is producing M10. Most of them are still on M6 level, and then there are two manufacturers who are starting now on G12, but at least I'm not aware of any heterojunction panel based on M10 wafer size.
Maybe
Shravan, this is the issue.
Maybe Shravan can help on the chat. I don't know, actually. I also just know that Huasan is also going for G12, but not for M10.
Right.
So
and I think for rooftop, this is really, I would say, for rooftop, I would say M10 is a perfect wafer size. I cannot see any advantage of G12 for rooftops. Then usually you have these panels with these 5 strings, which look not very nicely. So if someone has an M10 heterojunction product, I think that's a perfect base for residential rooftop.
Okay, okay, interesting. And the price differential. So we know about heterojunction products, how much they cost, and of course, I know usually a company that sells in the own market always has an advantage, because everywhere on the planet people prefer local brands. But aside from that, do you think that especially at the moment people would still, even if the module price is somewhat negligible, I don't know, under 30% for a rooftop system, is that people still would go for that if it's really 10 cents more or so?
Let's say not the vast majority, but I think there's a good chance, even for a heterojunction product, which is slightly more expensive. And you see the questions, of course, always, what is the price difference? You see the price difference or the price premium for TOPCon, let's say, is maybe 2 cents or 1.5 cents. And for heterojunction, it would be maybe another few cents above TOPCon. But I think now the Chinese solar industry has managed to also bring down the cost of heterojunction, that the additional price premium must not be 10 cents. And so I would say, yes, there is a good chance you will find enough customers for heterojunction panel, let's say, which is between 400 and 440 watt or so, which has a similar form factor than the current M10 PERC or TOPCon modules. Because you see the panel, of course, the panel price, like every penny counts. So also the panel price is important. But finally, for a residential system with the installation costs, which are higher, with the battery system, which is usually part of the entire package, like 1 cent or a few cents for the panel is not really the key disabler.
Yeah. When I just checked your website actually before our talk, and I saw that you have basically 4 products. So it was interesting when Adele from Trina was talking, and she kind of showed what's especially in Europe is an issue. Of course, we have I don't know, in the EU alone, 27 countries, on the continent, many more. And there are so many different roof tiles and so many different roofs and so many different standards. And that's why there's also so many different mounting systems. And that's why she argued, okay, we have to have a lot of products also. You focus on 4. So can you just explain a little bit the rationale, and how do you see the market that needs to be addressed, how it could be addressed in Europe?
Yeah, you see, we are basically focusing on the products which we think are most relevant or most interesting, and there's the highest demand actually from our customers. And it's interesting, by the way, that I would say from the total volume that we will sell this year, it will be 70% will be double glass. So because even the private house owner, he can easily understand that double glass is an advantage in terms of lifetime and reliability, because everyone knows glass as a material where moisture cannot penetrate, and that plastic is some kind of cheap and not long-term stable. So it's very easy even for the installer to convince a private house owner that double glass is a good thing. So that's why I think, yeah, double glass is important. Is an important part of the portfolio, but of course, like, you also need to have, like, let's say, the cheapest option, which is glass backsheet. Yeah, I also was very interesting to hear in the morning from, I think it was Trina, where she was explaining that for rooftop you need a very large portfolio of panels, and I think for commercial rooftops, that's somewhat correct. Let's say for commercial rooftops, there are many different mounting structures. For large commercial rooftops, even like large panels can be interesting. even panels like bigger than 2 square meter. And I would say, yes, you need, as a huge company who wants to be like another top 10, who wants to serve basically any market, from the residential market, small commercial rooftop, large commercial rooftops. Yes, you need a certain portfolio in terms of product dimension, in terms of product design, glass backsheet versus double glass. Yes, that's true. But they say we are focusing on the residential market, and that's why for us, basically, a small portfolio is good enough.
Okay. And you, I think that what I found that also interesting what you said about this this beautiful the sense of solar has to be beautiful, that it is going now be simply broader range and real mass market, and architects are also looking into that. We see in Europe also now, I think in Baden-Württemberg, state of Germany, actually since May you have also mandatory solar for new builds, and so that means we have to address a bigger audience, a bigger customer group. I found interesting also, Shravan mentioned that yesterday, that there were also new products that are addressing that, so that Ulbrich came out with this black ribbon, and that we see actually also better back sheets that address that. How do you think we will soon see only black modules in the rooftop segment, or mostly because it is simply more attractive?
Yeah, actually, in terms of residential, I think at least from our portfolio, really the vast majority is what you would call black, which means either it's this black backsheet or it's double glass, where the rear glass is transparent. So the ratio of panels with white backsheet, which at least we are selling to the residential rooftop market, is maybe 30 or 40%, I would say. It's less than 50%, definitely. And I think it's not so much a question of involving architects. I think it's very obvious that even like many people just see that black or almost black is just more beautiful than with a white backsheet, or even worse, like with a silver frame. So those kind of systems really look like old style and some kind of definitely not beautiful. And I think like 10 years ago, full black modules have been much more expensive than regular modules. Black double glass modules have been very expensive just because of double glass. But now that the costs came down, the price premium for being a beautiful product is almost negligible. And I think that is what is driving the trend towards black or almost black panels for the residential market.
Maybe I think so. Just one quick question on glass, because at the beginning, I think there was also this fear that glass is too heavy, and maybe that's why installer wouldn't want to like it. But so they really appreciate now glass modules, you think, in the residential market?
Yes. So we see, like, as I said, we are selling 60-70% of double glass, and they all go to the residential market. And it's yes, they are more heavy now. These standard M10 double glass modules, the weight is 24.5 kg, which is really heavy. But the same product with glass backsheet is also 21.5 kilograms. So it's yes, the other one is of course more heavy, but it's not so much super more heavy. But it's the same with any kind of technology push over the past years. So the modules always have become larger. So the installer was complaining, how shall I put it on the roof? It's too heavy, it's too big actually. But now the installer is used to it, I must say. So it's we still also sell products based on M6 because they are a little smaller, they are a little more lightweight. But I would say almost any installer now became used to the larger format and also used to the larger, to the higher weight. It's not really critical. Yes, people are complaining in the beginning, but then, okay, they buy the product.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about this, the BIPV segment. I saw that you also have a roof tile on your website. I remember actually, I think you already tried to sell, or you had ideas for roof tiles during Solon times, and when we both know, actually, I can remember from my photon times 20 years ago, where we started actually our first market survey on BIPV, and there were all these big tile manufacturers like Lafarge, Brass, and so on. They had their products. It never happened because it was way too expensive at that time. Then there was a tendency to have bigger products or normal modules with special frames, like from Solry, for example, to integrate that. You had then some specialized module manufacturers like 3S in Switzerland and so on, who focused on that segment. Now the big ones are coming in, but you also see again small roof tiles. Tesla tried it a few years ago. I think that was not so successful, if I'm correct. But at least Meyer Burger has just also introduced very small roof tiles with their heterojunction technology. What do you think? So where is the market? So I have to do the roof of my house at some point. I'm really thinking about doing something building integrated, also from a sustainable perspective. So why put tiles there and then an additional solar layer that makes, from a sustainability point of view, no sense?
Yeah, correct. But I think cost-wise, you will see that it will be a difficult decision, because any kind of roof integration products, they are more expensive. You see, if you see all these small tile style things, the modules are smaller. They are produced in much smaller volumes. So those products are more expensive, and they are, I would say, significantly more expensive. It's not that they are 10% more expensive than a standard panel, but I would say there's a factor 2x or 3x just for the modules. But again, I would say the market is growing so big now that even like niches can become interesting. And I think those kind of roof integration products will never become predominant. They will never have like a 50% market share. But even if they get like a 2 or 3% market share, it will be many megawatts per year very soon. And there is a certain customer group which is so much focused on aesthetics that price is not a super critical factor, and they want something which is really integrated, which looks great. And for such kind of product, they are ready to pay a much higher price. It's really, I don't know, solar is becoming some kind of normal. Not everyone is buying like a Toyota or Volkswagen. There are people buying expensive cars, and there will be people who will be buying expensive solar systems if they see a high value in those systems. The value is the house, A, looks very beautiful, but B, nevertheless is some kind of green or ecological. So it will not be a mass market, yes, but it will become an interesting niche market.
Okay, maybe I think there was also one question in the chat regarding IBC. So for a long time, SunPower, or now Maxion, have been the lonesome fighter in that segment. So now we have Radovan Kopeček and ISC who are coming with their lower cost Zebra technology, which also is being used by SPIC. So how do you see that in the market? I think if we look at our Taiyang monthly commercial efficiency table, SunPower is still, because of their higher efficiency, still the number one with, I believe, 22.8% module efficiency. So Do you see a market there? I think SunPower is pretty big in the US, right? With their products.
Yeah, in the US, SunPower is very big in the commercial segment, in the residential segment only. You see, they just sold their commercial business, I think, to the mother company Total. So with their product, SunPower is really focusing on the residential market only. And I think this is from my perspective, the natural market for an IBC product, because it really looks very good. It is really full black. And on the other hand, at least up to now, all IBC products are more expensive. So also like the IBC products that you have now in the market, they are more expensive than regular products. But also here, they are not crazy more expensive. So yes, they are significant more expensive in terms just from the module perspective. That's, I would say, roughly 20% or so. But that's why they will not dominate. But it's not so crazy more expensive that nobody will buy them. And therefore, I think it can be a much bigger niche than these roof integration products. I think it's a good and interesting product for the residential market.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about other parts of the system still now, because I think we also learned that there are the 210s and the 182s. They both have now groups that are trying to standardize sizes. How are you seeing that, and how is also the feedback from installers on all these different sizes just on the rooftop, in the rooftop segment?
Yeah, so I think that was a great move from the Chinese solar industry to make that kind of standardization. I think it's very important to bring down the costs, to make it life easier also for raw material suppliers, for the glass manufacturers, for the aluminum frame suppliers. It makes life easier actually for everyone in the supply chain. And finally, yes, it also makes life easier for the installer or for the let's say for the project developer, if you think of larger systems, because specifically in times like these where there is a high demand and maybe there are restrictions in the supply of panels, they can much more easily switch from one product to the other product if the size is the same. And I think that is something which is very important to really stimulate the entire solar industry, to make life easier for everyone through the entire value chain.
And if we look at mounting systems, so both prices for aluminum and steel have increased quite a bit. Yesterday, Fabian from GreenTech said has been very worrisome for the EPCs and developers in the large scale segment. So of course, here it makes such a small amount of the whole system cost that it's probably not so important. But what are you seeing? Are the companies nevertheless trying to save on materials? Are you seeing improvements also, changes, innovations in the mounting field?
You see, there are, let's say, continuous innovations. I do not see any disruptions. So it's still aluminum or stainless steel or maybe galvanized steel. It's still the typical technology to finally fix it on the roof, because that's also somewhat, let's say, driven by how the roofs are built. I think it will be very difficult to use any other material than steel or aluminum. Yes, there are some kind like innovative approaches for the clamps. Really, I saw some clamps which you don't need to screw. Some things where you can really also click it in, which makes maybe life easier for the installer in the roof. But yeah, I would say this is normal continuous improvement. I could not see any disruption actually. Maybe what you would call a disruption for commercial rooftops at least is if you go, let's say, to flexible solar modules like Sunman or DIS from Austria. This is really like a totally different scheme. So you don't need racking for such kind of panels. So this is really a disruption. But you see here that then the panels are more expensive and it can only be used on certain types of roofs. But also this is, if we go away from residential, if you go to commercial rooftops, this is something which is a trend that more and more companies, also Spic was mentioning it, are offering now panels without glass, which are lightweight, which can be also used on building structures which simply do not allow additional load from a solar system. And also here, it's I would say it will be a niche, but a niche which will be more important and a growing niche. And of course, for such kind of systems, yes, they are really very different than the conventional systems. But for racking, yeah, at least I couldn't see any kind of revolution.
It is also interesting because I think we had that once, right? So it was then thin film. Ovonic was doing that. They had their triple junction amorphous, which was also glued at metal roofs tiles. Okay, cool. In terms of what are you seeing? What else is happening on the systems side, or what's improving maybe on the rooftop systems? Are we seeing anything like which is helping also installers in terms of modeling software which installers can use? Is it getting better? Because of course you have now so many different module types. It's getting, I think, so many different manufacturers. What can make, because in the end, at the moment, if you look at the pie chart, the biggest chart from Astrology, I think, was showing that is now installation soft costs. And of course, how can we get that down? Of course, I think it will be probably not coming as much down as people would have hoped, because salaries of those guys are increasing, and we have to convince installers to do solar at all and not do other electrical jobs, so that they have an attractive margin in this segment. But is there still some cost reduction potential?
Yeah, definitely there is. I think many installers now, they don't even visit the site before they make an offer. They are asking the house owner, send me photos of your roof, send me photos of your AC connection room, something like that. And then they make quotations and they make offers based on what they have seen on the photos, because just going out is too costly, or if it's not too costly, then at least it takes too much time. You see, there's so much pressure on the market, also to the installers, there's so much demand that time, I think, is the most critical resource also for the installer. Every installer that I know is basically booked for the rest of the year. So he needs to save time, and any tool that can help him is interesting for him. On the other hand, let's say some house owners, I would say, are very innovative. If they are like 30 years old, no problem, they do anything through the internet. But also many other house owners are more conservative. They want someone to visit them. I would say the market's also separating here or getting more diverse, maybe, that there are systems sold really totally remotely and everything will work fine, but there are many customers and many installers who are conservative, who have basically very high sales costs.
But on the other hand, of course, the installations get more complicated, because we saw also, that was new to me, that Jinko is also now going into the battery business. Trina has been there for quite some time. If you look at the inverter manufacturers, I think Huawei's inverter with battery, it's increasing. Everyone has hybrid inverters. Then you have companies, SMA did that, they come with charging stations for cars. So the package is actually getting bigger. So it's more complicated for an installer. Of course, also more revenue and profit potential. But what are you seeing there in terms of installations? Also in Germany, I think the storage attachment rate is very high. But are you seeing that in general now?
At least in Germany, yes. So I think in Switzerland too. And that this has like, there are two reasons actually. First of all, people want it. So if many people, if they want a solar system, of course they want to use their own energy, even if they're not at home over the day. And every of such hardware now comes with a nice app where the house owner can see actually, or can monitor on in his mobile phone, how much energy do I use on my own and so on. I think that's very important. And also, of course, the prices have come down also for residential storage. And that's why, yeah, you know the statistics, 70 or 80% of all residential systems here in Germany get their storage system now. And I think this is very important for the installers, that the systems are really available, because they cannot make themselves familiar with 10 different products. It's too complicated. Most installers that I know, they are usually selling only one product in terms of inverter and battery, because it takes time to make yourself familiar with the system, to commission it right. If there's a problem, that you know the answer immediately. So they basically would want to use only one product. And if this product is not available because of supply chain restrictions, they have to use a different product. It's very complicated for them, and it's very time consuming. So I think it would be it's a great benefit that now inverter manufacturers can offer like a full package: inverter, charging station, battery, monitoring app. Everything basically must be one system, which is really easy to use for the installer. And here again, the installer is the gatekeeper. If the system is technically great, it doesn't help if the installer doesn't like it. The installer must like the system to sell it to the private house owner. This is the key.
Okay, so then maybe one question as a final question, because time is up. What do you think, or what would you wish to see in terms of product innovation that makes your life easier selling your products, or also help the market to get things easier done to come up in 1 year time? So in terms of product innovation, software innovation.
Yeah. As I said, let's say on the module side, I would love to have an M10 heterojunction product. Maybe I need to find the right factory to build it for me, but that would be great. And on the other side, I think it's really these the package of inverter, battery, charging station. So I think this is really crucial. And I think every company who has a good product there, with good availability, really is in a very good position for himself, but also really is doing a good job for the industry, because it's very important that the installation and the commissioning of all the storage, electrical system, AC connection, that this is going smoothly. That the setup of the system, the implementation into the monitoring, that all this is done really easy. It's an easy job for the installer, and that he's not wasting his time actually finally in the backyard of the house with the commissioning of the electronics.
Okay, super. Okay, thanks. Pleasure talking to you. Always great, insightful, reflecting this Intersolar. Thanks, Lars.
Thanks for having me. Have a good time.
You too. Okay, then to conclude these 2 days, I think I learned a lot. I hope you too. It was actually, we will do that now more often, a great way also for us to learn what all happened with the major companies at Intersolar. If you look at our website, we just published 2 new reports, one on solar module innovations, one on cell production equipment. We will soon come up with a heterojunction report. So maybe Lars will find then his supplier of M10 modules. And soon we will also come up with a market survey on Tracker, updating our last year's edition. So stay tuned. Thanks again to our sponsors. Wish you a nice afternoon and a nice evening. Again, thanks to everyone, and last but not least to the TaiyangNews team. Have a nice day or evening. Ciao.